The mockery begins. The Pathfinder wasn't much to look at. Her hull was patched with mismatched metal plates. Her engines hummed with an uneven rhythm that made experienced engineers nervous. She was built from salvaged materials, outdated designs, and the stubborn refusal of her creators to give up on a dream. But she was humanity's first true interstellar vessel, and Captain Sarah Chin loved her despite every flaw. Sarah stood on the bridge, watching the countdown timer tick toward zero. Around her, the crew worked at their stations with focused intensity. They were 12 souls who had volunteered for a journey that might kill them. 12 people who believed that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Engine status? Sarah asked, her voice calm despite the anxiety twisting in her stomach. Lieutenant James Park looked up from the engineering console. He was a compact man with oil-stained fingers and eyes that rarely showed fear. Running hot, Captain. But she'll hold. She always does. Navigation locked and ready, added Dr. Kenji Yamamoto from the helm. The young physicist treated space travel like solving an elegant equation. His fingers danced across the controls with practiced confidence. Sarah took a deep breath. All hands prepare for jump. We're about to make history. The Pathfinder engaged her experimental drive. For 3 perfect seconds, everything worked exactly as planned. The ship folded space around herself like origami. Stars became ribbons of light. The crew held their collective breath as reality bent to human will. Then the alarm started screaming. We're off course. Kenji shouted, his calm demeanor cracking as impossible numbers flooded his screen. The jump trajectory collapsed. I don't know where we are. The ship lurched violently out of faster-than-light travel. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits. The lights flickered and died, then struggled back to life. Sarah gripped her command chair as the vessel stabilized. When the main view screen cleared, silence fell across the bridge. What in the name of? James whispered. Before them hung a structure that defied comprehension. It was a space station the size of a small planet, covered in gleaming towers and glowing pathways. Thousands of ships moved around it in perfect choreography. Each vessel was sleek, elegant, and clearly built by hands that had mastered space travel long before humans left their caves. I think we found aliens, Sarah said quietly. Or they found us. The communications array exploded with noise. Dozens of languages, none of them human, filled the bridge. Some sounded like music, others like grinding stone. One resembled the clicking of insects magnified 1,000 times. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, the ship's xenobiologist, listened with wide eyes. She was a woman who had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life. Now that possibility was shouting at her in surround sound. They seem agitated, she observed with characteristic understatement. Maybe we should introduce ourselves, suggested Sarah. She opened a broadcast channel. Hello. We are humans from the planet Earth. We seem to have gotten lost. Could anyone help us find our way home? The alien chatter stopped instantly. Complete silence followed. Then every channel erupted at once with what could only be described as galactic pandemonium. I think we surprised them, James said, fetching coffee from the small galley area. Anyone want a cup while we wait? On the massive station, panic rippled through the Galactic Council chambers. Supreme Counselor Vex Thor received the emergency alert in his meditation sphere. He was a being of pure energy, ancient beyond measure, who had guided the Council for 10,000 years. In all that time, nothing had breached their space undetected. An unknown species, his aide reported, its crystalline form shimmering with anxiety. They appeared inside our most secure sector. Their vessel matches no known design in our databases. How did they penetrate our defenses? Vex Thor demanded. They didn't penetrate anything, Supreme Counselor. They simply appeared. As if they materialized from nothing. Vex Thor floated from his sphere. The Galactic Council controlled 300 star systems. They had cataloged over 500 intelligent species. Every corner of civilized space was mapped, monitored, and managed. And yet these creatures had appeared from nowhere. Prepare my diplomatic platform, he ordered. I will meet them personally. When Vex Thor's elegant craft approached the crude human vessel, he expected weapons. He expected aggression or terror. First contact with primitive species always followed predictable patterns. They would either attack in panic or beg for mercy. Instead, he found a human woman waving at him through a porthole. She was smiling. Vex Thor experienced something he hadn't felt in millennia. Genuine confusion. The docking procedure was smooth. When the airlock opened, Vex Thor manifested his physical form, a towering figure of condensed light surrounded by 6 armed guards. He was designed to intimidate, to inspire awe and submission. Captain Sarah Chin stepped forward and extended her hand. "Hello. I'm Captain Chin. Thank you for coming to help us. We're a bit lost." Vexthor's translation matrix struggled to process the gesture and the words. After a moment, understanding came. "You are lost. Very lost. We were trying to reach a nearby star system, but our engine had some complications. And now we're here." She looked around at the magnificent station with genuine appreciation. "This is an incredible place, by the way. How long did it take to build?" 17 centuries, Vexthor answered automatically, his mind still struggling to process the situation. These creatures showed no fear. No hostility. Only friendly curiosity. 17 centuries. James walked over with 2 steaming cups. "The engineering must be phenomenal. I'd love to study the power distribution systems." He offered a cup to Vexthor. "Coffee? It's from Earth. Helps with thinking." One of the guards moved forward protectively. "Supreme Counselor, they offer an unknown substance. It could be dangerous." But Vexthor watched the humans carefully. They all drank the same dark liquid. Dr. Rodriguez was sketching the station's architecture in a notebook. Kenji was examining the wall panels with professional interest. Lisa was asking a guard about the station's life support systems, not with fear but with scientific fascination. These beings had accidentally made contact with a civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. They were surrounded by weapons that could vaporize their ship. They faced powers they couldn't begin to comprehend. And they were offering coffee and asking about engineering. "I believe," Vexthor said slowly, "we need to have a very long conversation." Sarah smiled warmly. "We'd like that very much. And if it's not too much trouble, we'd also appreciate directions home. Our families are probably worried." As Vexthor led the humans deeper into the station, he sent a priority message to the council. It contained only 4 words: "Everything we knew is wrong." The council chambers were designed to overwhelm visitors with grandeur. Holographic displays showed the vastness of council territory. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the tiered seating. Everything about the space screamed power and authority. The humans walked through it like tourists in a museum, pointing out interesting architectural details and asking questions about the various species present. "The assessment will now begin," announced Counselor Threshake, a massive reptilian being who served as chief security officer. His voice rumbled like grinding tectonic plates. "State the name of your home world." "Earth," Sarah answered simply. "Describe your planet's environmental conditions." "We have varied climates. The gravity is about 9.8 meters per second squared. Our atmosphere is mostly nitrogen with about 21% oxygen." Every translator in the chamber fell silent. Then they all activated at once as representatives began shouting. 21% oxygen? That's an oxidizing atmosphere. 9.8 meters per second squared? That's nearly double standard gravity. Threshake held up a clawed hand for silence. "You evolved in heavy gravity, breathing a highly reactive gas? Is that unusual?" Sarah asked, genuinely puzzled. "It's practically a death world," muttered a small amphibian counselor. The questions continued. With each answer, the council grew more disturbed. "You consume other living organisms?" "Yes. Plants and animals. It's how we get energy." "Your planet has predators?" "Many. Though we've learned to coexist with most of them." "Have any of these predators killed humans?" "Throughout our history, yes. But we developed tools and strategies. We're at the top of the food chain now." A crystalline being in the back row fainted, shattering on the floor. "How many extinction-level events has your species survived?" Threshake asked, his voice carefully controlled. Sarah thought for a moment. 5 or 6 major ones. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes. "Oh, and we almost destroyed ourselves once with nuclear weapons, but we pulled back from that." "You developed weapons capable of planetary destruction and used them on yourselves?" "It was a difficult period in our history. We learned from it." Vexthor floated forward. "Captain Chin, your species has survived multiple catastrophes, developed in extreme conditions and created weapons of mass destruction. Why aren't you more aggressive?" Sarah looked genuinely confused by the question. "Why would we be? We're explorers, not conquerors. We came out here to learn, to meet others, to share knowledge. Isn't that what everyone does?" The council chamber fell into stunned silence. These creatures came from a nightmare world. They should be hardened warriors, paranoid survivors, aggressive competitors. Instead, they offered coffee and asked polite questions. Counselor Vexthor made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Captain Shin, I'm afraid we cannot simply send you home. Your species is too unusual. We must conduct a full evaluation. The Council needs to understand what humanity truly is before we allow contact with the broader galactic community. Sarah nodded. That seems reasonable. What kind of evaluation? A series of challenges. Tests of capability, intelligence, and character. They will determine your species' classification and rights within Council space. When do we start? Vexthor felt that strange confusion again. No species welcomed testing. They feared it, resented it, or tried to avoid it. But this human simply wanted to begin. Tomorrow, he said. Rest tonight. Prepare yourselves. As the humans were escorted to guest quarters, the Council erupted in debate. They're too dangerous, Thresh argued. A species from a death world with nuclear capabilities? We should quarantine their system immediately. They seem peaceful, countered a gentle, floating creature. Perhaps their harsh world taught them cooperation instead of conflict. Or perhaps, said another counselor darkly, they're simply very good at hiding their true nature. Vexthor listened to them all. Then he made his decision. We will test them thoroughly. And we will make the tests difficult. If they are dangerous, we will know. If they are not, we will welcome them. But we will not make assumptions. What none of them knew was that the tests were designed for failure. The Council had never accepted a new species without years of observation and cultural integration. The challenges were meant to humble the humans, to show them their place in a galaxy far older and more advanced than anything they could imagine. The humans, drinking coffee in their assigned quarters and marveling at the alien architecture around them, had no idea they were about to be put through trials designed to break them. But then, the galaxy had no idea what humans were capable of when challenged. The real test was about to begin. And nothing would ever be the same. The shattering. The testing arena was a marvel of engineering and cruelty. It floated in the void between stars, a massive sphere capable of simulating any environment the Council could imagine. For 3,000 years, it had evaluated species seeking entry into galactic civilization. Most failed. Those who passed did so barely, humbled and grateful for the Council's mercy. Captain Sarah Chin stood with her crew in the observation deck, watching holographic displays explain the first challenge. Around them, hundreds of Council representatives gathered to witness what they assumed would be humanity's inevitable humiliation. The navigation trial, announced Counselor Threshike, his reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. Your primitive vessel will navigate through the Thornfield Nebula, a region of space with gravitational anomalies, radiation storms, and debris fields. Most species require 3 attempts to complete this course. You will have 1. Sarah studied the holographic map. The course was a nightmare of obstacles, each one capable of destroying their ship. What happens if we fail? Your vessel will be recovered. You will return to Earth with our apologies. And humanity will remain isolated until you develop more advanced technology. Perhaps in a few thousand years. And if we succeed? Then we proceed to the next test. Threshike's tone suggested he considered success impossible. James Park whispered to Sarah, Captain, the Pathfinder wasn't built for this kind of precision work. Our engines are held together with determination and spare parts. Then we'll use determination and spare parts to get through, Sarah replied. She turned to the Council. We accept the challenge. The humans boarded their ship while Council observers settled into comfortable viewing stations. Bets were placed on how quickly the attempt would end in disaster. The prevailing opinion was less than 10 minutes. The Pathfinder launched toward the Thornfield Nebula. Sarah took her position in the command chair while her crew prepared for what should have been an impossible task. Entering the nebula in 30 seconds, Kenji reported from navigation. Captain, the gravitational readings are fluctuating wildly. I can't predict safe paths more than a few seconds ahead. Then we navigate in real time, Sarah said calmly. James, how are the engines? Cranky but functional. Though I wouldn't recommend any sudden maneuvers. Define sudden. Anything that might rip the ship apart. Sarah allowed herself a slight smile. We'll try to avoid that. Lisa, I need you on sensors. Call out obstacles before Kenji's computers can process them. Dr. Rodriguez moved to the sensor station. As a xenobiologist, she wasn't trained for this, but she understood Sarah's thinking. Human reaction time, human intuition, human eyes seeing patterns that computers might miss. The Pathfinder entered the nebula. Immediately, alarms screamed as radiation washed over the hull. The ship bucked as gravitational wells pulled her in 3 directions at once. Debris field ahead. Lisa called out. I see it, Kenji responded, his fingers dancing across the controls. The ship twisted, dodging chunks of ancient starships that had failed this test before. In the council observation deck, representatives leaned forward. The human ship moved erratically, without the smooth precision of advanced navigation systems. It lurched and dove like a drunken insect. They'll never make it through the first kilometer, someone predicted. But the Pathfinder kept moving. When gravitational anomalies appeared, Kenji didn't fight them. He used them, letting the ship fall into gravity wells and then punching the engines at precisely the right moment to slingshot through. It was reckless, inefficient, and completely against every established navigation protocol. It was also working. Radiation storm forming, Lisa warned. Directly in our path. Can we go around? Sarah asked. Not without hitting the debris field on either side. James studied his console. Captain, I have an idea. It's stupid, but it might work. I'm listening. We shut down everything except life support and engines. Minimal power signature. The radiation will still hit us, but we'll slip through before it peaks. Like running between raindrops. Except the raindrops are deadly radiation. Hence the stupid part. Sarah made her decision in seconds. Do it. The Pathfinder went dark. Only her engines glowed as she raced into the forming radiation storm. The crew held their breath as energy lashed the hull. Warnings flashed across every screen. Then they were through, systems coming back online one by one. In the observation deck, silence reigned. That maneuver shouldn't have worked. The timing required was beyond what their sensors showed the humans possessed. They're adapting, Vexthor said quietly. Not following protocols. Just adapting. The trial continued. For 2 hours, the Pathfinder twisted through impossible spaces. She took damage. Hull plating scorched. Systems overloaded. But the crew kept pushing, kept finding solutions that shouldn't work but somehow did. When the ship finally emerged from the nebula, battered but intact, the council chamber erupted in chaos. Impossible. They must have cheated. No species completes that course on the first attempt. Threshake silenced them with a roar. They passed. Barely. But they passed. He turned to his fellow counselors. Proceed to the second test. The second challenge was intellectual. The humans were presented with a mathematical puzzle that had stumped species for generations. It involved predicting the behavior of exotic matter under impossible conditions. The smartest minds in the galaxy had worked on it for centuries. The council gave humanity 12 hours to provide a solution. Dr. Kenji Yamamoto studied the problem for exactly 47 minutes. Then he called the entire crew together in the Pathfinder's small common room. I can't solve this, he admitted. It's beyond anything I've ever seen. So we fail? Asked James. Not necessarily. Lisa, you said something yesterday about pattern recognition in biological systems. Can you explain it again? The xenobiologist blinked in surprise. I was talking about how certain organisms evolve similar solutions to similar problems. Convergent evolution. What if we apply that concept here? Kenji pulled up the mathematical problem. What if instead of trying to predict the exotic matter's behavior, we look for patterns in how matter has behaved in similar situations? You want to use evolutionary biology to solve a physics problem? Lisa asked. Why not? Sarah used gravity wells like a pilot uses thermals. James treats our engines like living things. We're not like other species. We don't have one way of thinking. We combine everything. For the next 11 hours, the crew worked together in ways the council had never imagined. The physicist collaborated with the biologist. The engineer contributed insights from fluid dynamics. The captain, trained in military strategy, saw patterns in the mathematical chaos that reminded her of combat simulations. They didn't solve the problem the way it was meant to be solved. They approached it from 6 different angles simultaneously, combining disciplines that should have had nothing to do with each other. When they submitted their solution, the council's mathematical experts spent 3 hours verifying it. Then they spent another 2 hours arguing about whether it counted. It's not elegant, complained one expert. It's brutish, added another. But is it correct? Vexthor asked. Silence. Then reluctantly, yes. It's correct. The third test was social. The humans were presented with a complex diplomatic scenario involving 3 species with conflicting needs and ancient grudges. They had to negotiate a solution that satisfied everyone. Experienced diplomats typically needed weeks. The humans had 1 day. Sarah approached it like a military commander planning a campaign. She divided her crew, assigning each member to study one species. They learned histories, cultural values, and unspoken customs. Then they did something unexpected. They invited representatives from all three species to dinner on the Pathfinder. The ship's galley wasn't designed for diplomatic functions. It was a cramped space with mismatched furniture and a food synthesizer that worked intermittently. But the humans cooked real food from Earth recipes, using supplies they'd brought from home. The three species arrived suspicious and hostile. They sat as far apart as the small room allowed. Sarah served them herself. Before we talk about problems, she said, let's talk about food. On Earth, we believe sharing a meal builds understanding. She described each dish, explained its cultural significance to humans, and asked about their cuisines. Slowly, cautiously, the aliens began to talk. Not about their grievances but about food, family, traditions. James told stories about his grandmother's cooking. Lisa described food festivals on Earth. Kenji explained the science of flavor while making it sound like poetry. 2 hours later, the three species were laughing together. They shared their own stories, found common ground in unexpected places, and discovered that their grievances seemed smaller when viewed alongside genuine connection. The solution to the diplomatic crisis came naturally from that conversation. It wasn't the complex treaty the Council expected. It was simpler, more personal, based on mutual respect rather than legal obligation. When Sarah presented the agreement to the Council, Threshe stared at it in disbelief. This is too simple. Diplomatic solutions require extensive frameworks, enforcement mechanisms, treaty obligations. Or, Sarah suggested gently, they require people to see each other as people instead of problems. The three species signed the agreement immediately. They'd already decided during dinner that they liked the humans and trusted their solution. Vex Thor floated forward. You've passed 3 tests designed to be nearly impossible. Tests that have broken species with technology far beyond yours. How? Sarah considered the question carefully. We don't have advanced technology. We don't have superior intelligence. But we have something else. We come from a world that kept trying to kill us, so we learned to survive by being flexible, creative, and working together. We don't have one right way to do things. We have 1,000 wrong ways that somehow work. You adapt, Vex Thor said slowly. We do more than adapt. We improvise. We combine things that shouldn't go together. We fail forward. She smiled. You wanted to test humanity's capabilities. But you tested us like we were any other species. We're not. We're the species that looked at a death world and decided to thrive there. We're the ones who almost destroyed ourselves and then chose to reach for the stars instead. You can't test us by making things harder. Hard is where we live. The council chamber fell silent. Every representative understood what they were witnessing. This wasn't a primitive species begging for acceptance. This was something unprecedented. Councillor Threshe rose from his seat. The council will deliberate. Return to your quarters. After the humans left, the debate raged for hours. Some councillors argued for rejection. They're too unpredictable, too dangerous. Others saw opportunity. They solve problems we've struggled with for centuries. Imagine what they could contribute. Finally, Vex Thor spoke. For 10,000 years, the Council has operated on the principle that advancement means following established paths. We have protocols for everything. We have the correct way to navigate, to calculate, to negotiate. And in all that time we've stagnated. We haven't truly innovated in millennia. He paused, letting his words sink in. These humans don't know our correct ways. They don't follow our paths. And in 3 days, they've shown us possibilities we never considered. You're suggesting we accept them? Threshe asked. I'm suggesting we need them. Not despite their differences, but because of them. The vote was close. But when it concluded, humanity had won something no species had achieved in 3,000 years. Unanimous acceptance on their first evaluation. When Sarah and her crew returned to the chamber, Vex Thor delivered the news. Captain Chin, the Galactic Council officially recognizes humanity as a full member species. You will have all rights, privileges, and responsibilities that come with that status. Sarah felt tears threatening but held them back. Thank you. We'll work hard to prove worthy of this honor. You already have. But there's one more thing. Vex Thor gestured, and a holographic display activated. Your vessel, the Pathfinder, has been analyzed by our best engineers. They're calling it a masterpiece of improvisation. They want to study it, learn from it. They want to understand how you made something so flawed work so well. James laughed. She's held together by hope and stubbornness. Exactly, Vexthor said. We have ships that are perfect. They do exactly what they're designed to do, nothing more. Your ship does whatever needs doing, design be damned. That's not primitive technology. That's revolutionary thinking. The council had learned a hard lesson. They'd mocked humanity's prototype, dismissed it as crude and inferior. They designed tests to humble these upstart creatures from an unknown world. Instead, they discovered that their own empire, vast and ancient as it was, had grown rigid, predictable, and limited. Humanity didn't shatter the empire through conquest or force. They shattered its assumptions, its certainties, its comfortable belief that it had achieved the pinnacle of civilization. In the weeks that followed, human engineers worked alongside council scientists. They taught courses on adaptive problem solving. They shared Earth's history of innovation born from necessity. They showed the galaxy that sometimes the best solution comes from having no choice but to make something work. The Pathfinder was eventually placed in a museum, but not as a curiosity. It stood as a reminder that perfection isn't always the goal. Sometimes good enough, held together by determination and creativity, can accomplish what perfect systems cannot. Captain Sarah Chen and her crew became ambassadors, not just for Earth but for a new way of thinking. They traveled the Council's territory, bringing with them the human gifts of flexibility, humor, and the stubborn refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's prototype. But that laughter had turned to respect, then to admiration and finally to gratitude. The empire hadn't been shattered by weapons or warfare. It had been transformed by perspective, renewed by fresh ideas, and ultimately saved from its own stagnation by a species that didn't know enough to accept limitations. And somewhere in the void, humanity's next prototype was already being built. It would be flawed, imperfect, and absolutely extraordinary. Because that's what humans did best.